Welcome to Business Outlook, a podcast by the Albuquerque Journal where we focus on 4 revolving themes: real estate, small business, emerging leaders, and technology.
CNM is truly one college with infinite possibilities in tech and data sciences. CNM offers programs where everyone can learn about software, apps, or how to build websites. You can also choose from AI programs and machine learning, the Internet of Things, and so much more. CNM, one college, infinite possibilities, and a proud sponsor of the Albuquerque Journal's Business Outlook.
Hi, welcome back to the Business Outlook podcast. I'm Ryan Boetel with the Albuquerque Journal. Our Business Outlook podcast this week is on real estate, and my guests are Sal Perdomo. Sal Perdomo, is that pronouncing it right?
Perdomo, yeah.
Perdomo. And Micah Gray. Micah Gray is a commercial real estate advisor with NAI Sun Vista. Sal is with Titan Development. Guys, thanks for coming on this podcast today. And one of the reasons we're here is because you were both founding members of Generation Elevate New Mexico. To start, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, your life in New Mexico, and how you kind of came to found this organization?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth area, went to school in San Antonio, and moved to New Mexico about 11 years ago. And I've worked in commercial real estate for about 8 years, started in economic development, did some work in city planning, and then moved over to the real estate development space. The reason I moved to New Mexico was because of the climate here, actually. I moved out here to train for cross-country and track. I used to compete in distance running, and this was just a very good place to train. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I noticed when I moved here is just working in the business environment and how different it was from the business environment in Texas. And as I spent more time working in the commercial real estate space, just saw a lot about how NIMBYism would really impact growth in our communities. And we can dive into that further as we get into Gen M a little bit further, but that was one of the motivating factors behind starting Generation Elevate New Mexico.
Okay. And Micah, we've covered your football career here at the Albuquerque Journal. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I grew up in Clovis, New Mexico. I moved here in Albuquerque in 2017, so I'm going almost on a decade now, to play football. And as a student athlete, played 4 years, and I was a graduate assistant on the team. And my last year being a graduate assistant, I became a broker at Sun Vista Commercial Real Estate. And so I've been with the company for 3 years in November, so we're almost there, and got into real estate right out of college, and really found a passion for it in grad school and business, and learned about investing and the nuances, and found a passion there. So, and I joined Gen M. Sal poached me and reached out to me that he was creating this group, Generate Elevate New Mexico, Gen M. And it was a group who wanted to support development and policies and see growth in Albuquerque. And being young and energized, I do a lot of traveling and see what other cities look like and how really cool they are. And you come back to Albuquerque and see what Albuquerque could be. And so being in real estate, I can have a direct impact, not only in my job, but also I'm young and energized and in the community. So why not be the change you want to be?
Yeah. So you were involved in creating this organization. Tell us a little bit about it. What was the kind of impetus for it, and what are your goals?
Yeah, we wanted to bring together a group of like-minded people that could help promote and advance smart growth in New Mexico. And that growth isn't just, it's not just growth of population, it's not just growth of jobs, it's not just growth of whatever, it's growth of everything. I don't think anybody in our organization wants Albuquerque to become Austin or Phoenix or Denver. Albuquerque has its own identity, and Albuquerque is a great place. But the only way Albuquerque can survive as a city is to have sustainable growth. What I mean by sustainable growth is 1% population growth a year, 1% to 2% per year. It's not 5% to 6% growth per year. That puts strain on your infrastructure, puts strain on your resources, and you're just continually playing catch up. You see it in a lot of communities around in our surrounding states. But Albuquerque does have the opportunity to continue to capitalize on what it's great at. And one of the things that kind of stands in the way of that growth in Albuquerque is what we call NIMBYism, which means not in my backyard. It refers to individuals who, out with the signs, standing in front of the tractor or the construction equipment trying to stop growth, right? and they show up to public hearings, they show up and they just try to fight growth. And really, it makes development hard because, I work for a commercial real estate developer. A lot of our members are involved in commercial real estate. And, they're trying to do good things in this community. They're trying to advance this community. They're trying to provide jobs for this community. But then on the other hand, they're getting continued pushback from many people in our community who are trying to fight that growth. Yeah.
And what project, because Gen NM, you've already gotten involved in some projects that you're supporting. What are some of those at this point?
Yeah, probably the two biggest headliners have been the United Stadium. And then the second one is the development going up, the Palindrome project over on Osuna and was that 4th Street. Those have been the two biggest ones, and off the top of my head, I don't remember what the other two were called. The project downtown.
We've had about 6. We've had 6 projects / policies. So we don't only support projects. We also support policies that might promote growth in our community. The two Micah mentioned are the two that have kind of had the most press out of all the projects we've supported. And if I could maybe speak to how we select projects and how we kind of identify projects and policies to support, our organization will, whether it's from an inbound or just a project we've identified that might be experiencing NIMBYism in our community and might be on somewhat of a lifeline. And if that project meets a certain criteria, we will vote as a board whether our organization should support it or not support it. Mm-hmm. And if we decide to support it, then we will conduct a significant amount of research on that project, reach out to our membership, engage them, educate them, and inform them with the resources they need to support that project as well. That support could be just simply sending in letters to the city councilors or the commissioners who are voting on that project. It could be speaking at the public hearing where that project's being heard, whether it's maybe a zone change or a site development plan or a variance or some other public hearing process that would be required for that project to move forward. And then last is, because our organization is primarily young people, not exclusively, but primarily young people, we do try to have a strong social media presence and try to push positivity through those means as well.
Well, and I think the United Project, we can talk a little bit more about that because that really just gets into the heart of the NIMBY issues that you guys deal with. And I live downtown. I talk about it in my columns a lot. I like seeing activity downtown, and especially like activity downtown that's just not people getting drunk. I think that's important. So I was kind of excited. I thought it would when they were considering the rail yards for it, and there was a lot of people who worried about gentrification, and rightly so. I mean, they didn't want to be priced out of their longstanding communities near downtown. But then there were changes. Originally it was going to be kind of at the rail yards, and now the proposal is kind of out in Balloon Fiesta Park. Tell me about that. Like, why does that happen? I mean, you guys see this as commercial real estate developers. Why is NIMBY a word? I mean,
yeah, the stadium's a great example. It was really a shame that the stadium did not go to the rail yards. I think there's a lot of positives that could have happened from that location. I think the biggest challenge probably was access to the site and just having 10,000 cars that are leaving that property during the evening is kind of tough, but it could serve as a catalyst to further investment in downtown. The site they did choose at Balloon Fiesta Park is an infill site. It's kind of underutilizing a resource that New Mexico and Albuquerque has, and I think could serve not only as the stadium, but will serve the community in several other ways as well. The reason NIMBYism is a term, right? Mm-hmm. Many people who are residents in our community are just maybe have a lack of education or uninformed about how development can impact them and how growth can impact them and how certain policies can impact them. And, they think if, a Class A apartment complex is going into their community that they're going to experience crime and lower property values and vandalism and increased traffic. And look, some of those concerns are valid. If you put 200 residents into a community, there's going to be increased traffic. But, supporting growth in your community ensures that the community thrives and survives. It ensures that your children have opportunities in that community when they get older. It ensures that more investment is coming to your schools and to your infrastructure and to, cool places like Green Jeans or Tin Can Alley or Stadium or, Nob Hill, which is really great right now, which is doing really well. And the small businesses have more customers and more investment. It has a trickle-down effect that is really important and impactful for our community.
Yeah.
And Micah, he used a term called infilling a property when he was talking about United at Balloon Fiesta Park. What does that mean when you talk about infilling a property?
Yeah, good question. So in this specific example, it would be the stadium is going in a place that was currently used as vacant land, a parking lot during Balloon Fiesta, right? It's this unused land, and so infill is coming in and utilizing this land to now be used, right? Put something there that has economic growth. It can bring money in, right? It can bring resources in, develop and bring up the surrounding area. So utilizing something that is currently not doing anything really of value and putting something there that is now of value, right?
Yeah.
Just to add to what Micah said, typically we really like infill projects as Generation Elevate New Mexico. It's one of the strongest criteria we have out of the list of all our criteria of why we would support a project or policy. Also, infill means that there is typically development surrounding it on all three sides, right? Versus like a project that's on the suburban outskirts of the city. Infill is kind of like, there's development on all the sides, and for some reason, either it needs to get redeveloped, like Micah was talking about, or it just needs to be developed. Maybe the seller was just holding out and didn't want to develop it for whatever reason.
Okay. Now, so you talked that your organization doesn't just support projects, you support policies. Can you give us an example? What's a policy that you would like to see changed in New Mexico? Or just one? I mean, I'm sure there's several of them, but if there was one wish list or something like that?
Oof, one wish list.
I have an answer on this one. Yeah. And I wear different hats. So this conversation, I'm not wearing my Titan hat. I'm wearing my Gen M hat.
Sure,
so I just want to make that very clear. The policy that kills me the most in New Mexico, and there's several that I would change if I was king for a day. The one that kills me the most is in Nob Hill. There is a overlay, which means that there's the underlying zoning code, and then there is a overlay on top of it that prevents structures from going up over from 2 stories up to 4 stories. It depends on the location along Central in Nob Hill. So you're looking at the second most dense corridor in our entire state, right? Compared to downtown, and then Nob Hill is second. An area that we need to be promoting, visitors, residents, and growth. An area that young people like us like to go out to dinner, or to go out to grab drinks, or to do this or to do that, or to go see a show or whatever. And we're limiting density in that area.
Sure.
So we're limiting investment. And that is a result of NIMBYism in its truest form. Is the reason that policy is in place is because NIMBYism carried over from the old sector plans into the new zoning code as a result of neighborhood opposition from years ago, before I even moved here, probably.
Okay. And probably like just opposition to development. I would have guessed that it would be so there's better views of the Sandia or something, but it might actually be just to make it so there's not as many people living in Nob Hill. I mean,
that's probably the case.
Yeah.
I think there's probably issues with, solar access. There's probably issues with, having taller buildings next to a adjacent single family neighborhood. All of those concerns are valid, but the reality is Nob Hill is your primary corridor for growth and investment and entertainment in our city.
Yeah. And there does seem to be a lot of momentum among private developers, among politicians to try to address these issues. I mean, there was in the news on last night that, an effort by one downtown councilor to put in place some policies that he thought were going to revitalized downtown got shut down. I think there was a lot of people on both sides of those issues for various reasons. But it does seem like people in Albuquerque are thinking about growth in Albuquerque, maybe in a little bit younger perspective. Do you get that sense that there might be some momentum building among people like yourselves?
Yeah, most definitely. To speak to our membership growth, we have boomed and really grown outside of what we thought we would in the first 6 months. We're at about over 460 members as of today, and we officially launched in May March.
460 followers and about 200 members.
Oh, 200 members,
Yeah.
460 followers. Sorry about that. But yeah, that speaks to the passion of the community and the people that want to be involved. And there are some other groups similar to ours around with, relatively same numbers and supporters and growth. I mean, we could all sit here and talk about the amount of friends and family we have seen leave Albuquerque right after college. People that don't come back, right, until maybe later on in life because they want a quieter scene. But people want to be here, and there is a lot of beauty to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Yeah. And I think people are starting to say, hey, how come we don't have people here, and how come people aren't wanting to come back? And it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Over half of our membership is non-commercial real estate people. So our membership is not only people that understand real estate and understand development and want to support what we're doing, but it's also people at Sandia Labs. It's also people who are in the medical industry. It's also people who might be in the service industry. People understand our mission and they do want to support growth.
Yeah. What do you expect from your membership? What are the attributes that you're seeking out, and what kind of responsibilities would you expect them to take on as members?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, there's not a specific ask. There's a couple asks, I would say. One of them being what Sal mentioned earlier is we can't see every project and policy that's around, right? And it's nice to have the people that are in real estate because we are in more of the day-to-day. But send us projects and policies that we could review and look at and educate the public on and educate our members on. So sending us those things, that way we can look at it and we are aware, can make awareness. Also, once we find a project and we support, to educate the people, sit in at city council, sit in at public hearings, write letters to your senators and your local representatives, right? Educating people in the NIMBYs on what's going on and to give positive voice, flood social media with impact, right? Our generation, we're sitting here doing this podcast, likes things via the internet, and have a positive impact instead of only hearing the negative things that has been going on and on and on and on. 5 no's is a lot harder to hear than 4 no's and 1 yes, right?
Yeah. And we kind of have different perspectives because, Micah, you grew up in New Mexico. Sal and I moved here in our early 20s, I think, and then stayed and made a community here. What do you think are New Mexico's assets, and why do you want to help New Mexico?
Assets, I mean, the beauty of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Sandia Mountains, walking out and seeing this beautiful view and seeing orange and pink skies at nighttime, having wonderful weather. You don't have extremeness here. We have the monsoon season, but who doesn't like rain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the nature, going on hikes, going out on springs, right? Albuquerque is a slower and more relaxed city, to be good and bad, but you don't have the chaos of a downtown Scottsdale or an Austin, right? Just absolutely bonkers. You have some of that New Mexican vibes going on, and it's really keen on here. The food, the culture is all unique to Albuquerque and New Mexico for that sake, and it's irreplaceable, right?
Yeah.
There's nowhere like this in the city. You could go to a couple of other cities and have similar experiences, but in Albuquerque, it's in Santa Fe and where I'm from, the eastern part of New Mexico, the plains, going down south to White Sands, right? The experience is just so much different here in New Mexico, and it's irreplaceable. It's beauty, and it's hard to, can't find that anywhere else.
Yeah, I always tell people that Albuquerque is small enough that you can really wrap your head around it. You don't get stuck in traffic. It's big enough that there's ethnic restaurants and culture and, ethnic grocery stores and whatnot. But Sal, you moved here because it's a good city to run in. High altitude, not the heat of Phoenix, not the snow of some mountain, Wyoming or something like that. It's perfect for what you do.
It is. Yeah. And, I did a panel with the Albuquerque Business Journal and area 2 weeks ago. And one of the questions was about New Mexico's climate and why people move here. And, I wish climate was a reason that people moved here. It is one of, there are a couple of reasons. It's kind of secondary, right? People move for climate. Like if people moved here for climate, we would have as much of a population growth as Phoenix, right? Because people would move here because we have the best climate in the country. When I think of Albuquerque, though, that I think stands out from other places. Micah hit it on the head there, the word culture, right? You think of cities that you kind of like and that kind of have an identity, right? You think of Albuquerque's top of that list. I think of San Antonio. I think of Tampa before Tampa boomed, right? A big Cuban culture. San Antonio is a good Hispanic, Spanish culture, right? Kind of even started from the Alamo, right?
Yeah.
Albuquerque has that culture. You think of Albuquerque, you think of balloons, you think of green and red chili, you think of, the Native American culture, you think of the Spanish influence that is that, you think of Old Town. And that's what makes Albuquerque great and gives it the identity. When I moved here 11 years ago, I loved the size. I loved that, it was a mid-sized city. DFW, where I grew up, was a huge city. San Antonio, where I went to school, was a mid-sized city. And you could really you get a better feel for the city. You even run into people at the grocery store that you know. When you're in a place like DFW, that doesn't happen. But in Albuquerque, those collisions are much more common, and it kind of makes you feel like you're part of that community.
Okay. So those are what you think are what really give Albuquerque a leg up. Those are the selling points for Albuquerque and New Mexico. What do you think is holding our state back?
That's a loaded question right there.
Okay.
I think kind of to go on the other side of the coin of what I just said is the relaxedness, the slowness of how New Mexico is, right? That's how we work. That's how we orientate. We are a small city, and we don't want to be a big city. Mm-hmm. We enjoy not having traffic it's 15 minutes anywhere you go. And I think that people are afraid that if we do grow, those things will now disappear, and we won't have the culture in the city that we do have, which is a big part of what we're doing to raise awareness and education, that is not always necessarily true. You can have sustainable growth without growing into Austin, like Sal mentioned earlier. There's also some policies, and it's hard to develop and build, not necessarily super developer friendly compared to other states and cities, which is just something that we have to grow with, and will change in progress in the future.
Okay. So if Gen NM, if you can accomplish the goals that you put in place when you created it, what will Albuquerque look like in 5 or 10 years?
That's a good question. If Gen M sets out the goals that we have to, help improve New Mexico and help do our small part to make New Mexico the best place possible, we would see Maxion or Iban Solar, right? One of those happening. We would see, 1 to 2% population growth per year. We would see, as a result, our education system moving from 50th to 35th or 30th or 25th or even better.
Yeah.
We'd see crime rates move in that same direction from 50th to 40th to 30th. When you have a place that supports growth and supports investment, it gives you more resources to tackle education and gives you more resources to tackle crime. There's more people moving in. There's more investment in the community. As I've mentioned already, that has a trickle-down effect to the broader community. So 10 years from now, that would be the biggest goal I would see of Gen M's efforts.
Okay, cool. And I mentioned earlier that when we started that you guys were both athletes, but Sal, you have a really interesting project that you've been training for. Would you like a chance to plug what your fight that you've got coming up and what you're trying to do with that fundraiser?
Yeah, absolutely. And Micah actually is the reason that Micah and another person, JT, are the reason this event is happening. Mm-hmm. And I'll just talk about how this got started. So Titan has work in Austin. We have an office in Austin, and I do a lot of work out of that office. And there's an annual through the Texas Real Estate Commission in Texas is the Fight Night, and it's a black tie event. 1,500 people, happy hour, dinner, and the featured event are boxing matches amongst industry professionals. Mm-hmm. So I came back to Albuquerque after I went to that event, and I was sitting down with Micah and JT at Two Fools in Nob Hill, and I was telling them about it, and these guys were like, we got to bring this to Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. So Micah and I are both very involved in NAIOP, and Micah and JT basically brought it to fruition. And I told them, I said, when you guys do this, I said, I want to fight. Mm-hmm. And I identified someone I want to fight, so you can look at the card and see who I'm fighting. But I've always wanted, I was a competitive runner for 18 years and, have my motivation and energy and body has kind of peaked in that sport, and I wanted to tackle something different. Mm-hmm. And I've always wanted to learn how to fight, so this provided a great opportunity to do it. So NAIOP Fight Night is October 25th of this year. There are 5 cards of commercial real estate professionals that are fighting, many people who will listen to this podcast will know them. and there's still some tickets available, and it's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
What'd I miss, Micah? You've been deep in this.
That's it. We're going to watch them get into the ring.
Yeah, it's crazy how, I mean, those peak athletic years really come at you fast. I mean, you know it probably more so than running, even with football. What are your hobbies? What are you doing to spend your time and just stay as an active athlete these days?
You name it, and I'm doing it at this point.
Oh, really?
Similar to Sal, I like new challenges and new tasks. I picked up playing soccer a couple times. I actually went and played squash with one of my coworkers. I'm in a men's basketball league. I enjoy running, did a couple half marathons. I couldn't get up to a full just because I can't convince myself yet. But I actually went in and I had to get my itch out of fighting, so I went and sparred with a couple of the other guys fighting and fight night.
Cool.
And,
yeah. All right. Since we're talking about New Mexico, are you guys red or green?
Christmas.
I usually like red. Green's tough on the stomach.
Okay, cool. And well, thanks a lot for coming in and talking about the organization and that you've created, and just also thank you for the work you're trying to do for New Mexico. In 60 seconds or less, how are you going to measure your success in Gen NM?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
we are excited to have continued membership growth. So for those who are listening, our website membership is free. It takes 30 seconds to become a member. I'm doing quotes here. Member. It's www.letselevatenm.org, and there's a form to fill out. Become a member there. And we just want to continue supporting impactful projects and policies that might be coming our way. Seems like every week there's a new thing that we're talking about. So
yeah, cool. Anything you'd like to add before we close out?
I'd say in 10 years, we'll, I guess, ultimately know how good of a job we did.
Okay, great. Well, Sal Perdomo, Micah Gray, thank you so much for coming in here. And Business Outlook podcasts are released on Monday afternoons.
Thank you for joining us. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoy our podcasts, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source.